Have you ever looked at something and thought, this doesn't belong here? This is the Osireion. Most people have never heard of it, but it might be the strangest structure in all of ancient Egypt. Sunken, silent, massive granite blocks buried behind Seti I's temple in Abydos. No inscriptions, no color, no 19th dynasty flourishes, just raw, megalithic power. It doesn't look New Kingdom. Some say it doesn't even look Egyptian. It looks ancient. Lost civilization ancient. And what I discovered challenged everything I thought I knew about this place. When I was first introduced to the Osireion on a study trip with John Anthony West, I was hooked. Wow, the scale, the mystery. It felt older than anything around it. And since then, I've brought my Adept Expeditions tours here, sharing West's belief that it might not only predate Seti I, but that it could be pre-dynastic.
When you go around the corner, look at what I think is pre-dynastic graffiti.
That's what I was going to say. That's the other interesting thing.
That's the other interesting thing. And if it is pre-dynastic graffiti, that sort of settles the matter.
But here's the thing. On one study trip, Site Inspector Hasm gently explained for West.
But what does that have to do with this? This it means something like Muslims when they go to Mecca.
Yes.
They drawing some
Pilgrimage,
food,
yes.
Hajj, chips in
Yes.
the front of it.
Okay.
Like this. I can do it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
That pre-dynastic graffiti, turns out it was Coptic from the Byzantine period. There was even an entire study on it. And that moment stuck with me. What if the Egyptologists were right? What if they weren't hiding the truth, but actually uncovering it? They date the Osireion to Seti I. And even though it feels ancient, I have to admit, I didn't have a solid answer. So I did what I always do. If I don't have the answer, I admit it. And then I go out on a quest to find it. And what I found changed everything. Hey, if you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next, all right? Let's get back into it. Everyone says the same thing when they see the Osireion. It looks ancient, pre-dynastic. So why do Egyptologists say otherwise? I couldn't ignore the contradiction. And living in Luxor, I had access. Just 5 minutes from my door was the Theban Mapping Project's library, a hub for visiting Egyptologists. That's where I met Dr. Kent Weeks, legend, uncovered KV5, largest tomb in the Valley of the Kings. He reframed the Osireion, not as a mystery, but a 19th dynasty funerary monument. He opened archives, pointed me to primary sources, and shared something surprising. Thematically, he said, the Osireion harkens back to older, perhaps even pre-dynastic traditions. He even pointed to Nekhen, where the Namur Palette was found, as a site where future excavations could reveal more about the Osireion's antecedents. But architecturally, he said the Osireion mirrors New Kingdom royal tombs. As I dug deeper, more confirmation surfaced. I combed through every scrap of literature. Peter Brand's Monuments to Seti I, Keith Hamilton's Layman's Guide to the Osireion, who later joined one of my Adept Expeditions tours.
Yeah. So, I mean, like everybody says, oh, Old Kingdom, you can't beat it. It's nonsense. The New Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, they all had great architects and engineers.
And then there's Charles Herzner's 5 volumes deep, one of the most comprehensive studies recently published on the Osireion. Reading through it all, that's the real reason this video took so long to make. No stone went unturned. The Egyptological evidence kept stacking up, like the books around me. Even Indiana Jones said, you gotta get out of the library. And John West took it a step further. Egypt is like sex. You can read about it, watch videos, but nothing compares to the experience. Same goes for the Osireion, because to truly understand this place, books aren't enough. To find deeper clues hidden in plain sight, you have to go boots on the ground. Enter it the way the ancients did, because when you do, it changes everything. It looks ancient, older than the pyramids, hidden below ground, soaked in water and mystery. But here's the twist. The real mystery of the Osireion, it's not just in how it was built, it's in how it was rediscovered, misunderstood, and then forgotten. Because this story was already challenged and corrected 100 years ago. And despite this, the Osireion has remained a magnet for awe, speculation, and misinformation.
What this was actually a massive water pumping system. You see the arch there? That's actually where the water was pumping slightly uphill out of the Osireion.
It's easy to be convinced by confident claims, especially when they lack context. But here's the thing, that arch passageway, it's not ancient, it's modern, built just before World War I during Neville's excavations. You can see it here in this photo from 1914, where construction of the arch roof was underway. A lot less mysterious, but far more accurate. And that's why history matters. Before we can understand what the Osireion means, we have to understand what happened to it, who uncovered it, when and how their interpretation shaped what we believe today. You've probably heard the story before, that the Osireion is thousands of years older than history says, that it's proof of lost technology, of a civilization wiped from memory. But what if I told you the entire theory started with a mistake, and it was debunked over a century ago? In 1902, Flinders Petrie noticed a depression behind Seti's temple, and Algernon Caulfield began digging. But it was Hilda Petrie, Flinders' wife, who took charge, and Margaret Murray, one of the few women in the field, who documented everything. She went deep. She was the first to uncover the entrance passage, the first to sketch the carvings, the first to say, this isn't a chamber, it's a symbolic tomb for Osiris, a cenotaph. It was the first major breakthrough, but most of the site was still buried. Nearly a decade later came Swiss archaeologist Edouard Neville, armed with over 500 local men and boys, and he cleared the central hall, revealing the towering granite pillars for the very first time. He agreed it was funerary, but compared it to Old Kingdom temples, like Khafre's Valley Temple at Giza. But comparing tombs to temples, that's like comparing apples to oranges if one of them was underground and had afterlife text. That comparison sparked the myth that the Osireion was thousands of years older than Seti. Then World War I halted progress. By the time Neville published, the myth had already spread. In 1925, Henri Frankfurt arrived. New eyes, new standards, he re-excavated the entire site. Unlike his predecessors, Frankfurt recorded everything. Stratigraphy, tool marks, inscriptions, even how the blocks interlock. What he found changed the story. Neville guessed. Frankfurt proved. The Osireion wasn't pre-dynastic, it was built by Seti I, planned, commissioned, and sealed. But strangely, Frankfurt's name rarely mentioned in popular retellings. Watch Osireion videos on YouTube, and you'd think archaeology stopped with Petrie and Neville. But to truly understand the Osireion, you must start with Frankfurt, because what he uncovered beneath layers of sand, stone, and speculation reshapes the entire history. And the best way to appreciate that is not from online theories or recycled assumptions, but from within the stone monument itself. Today, most visitors only see the Osireion from above, looking down from the east or south side behind Seti's temple. From up there, your view is limited. The central hall dominates your field of vision. The side chambers, almost invisible. The details, lost in shadow, buried by distance and angle. No wonder people think there are no hieroglyphs inside. I did too, until one day, sunlight hit the stone just right, and only then, standing inside the central hall, did I begin to see them. From above, you'd never notice the decorative program beneath your feet. I've led tours here for years, and yet I've missed the second flower of life and didn't realize multiple versions are etched across two pillars until I was standing inside. What's up, everybody? Anyextee here, coming to you today from inside the Osireion at Abydos. So we're here today at Abydos inside the Osireion, and a lot of people talk about the famous flower of life, which is depicted right there. And if you look close, there's a second one, and there's actually a third one up above, and there's another one over here and a smaller one there. And if you come onto this side, you can see a large one right here, one beside it, and smaller, what appears to be prototypes or circular sacred geometry up there as well. So it's not just one flower of life at Abydos, it's actually many flowers of life here in the Osireion. It was only on my most recent tour that I noticed these unusual carvings I've never seen published or mentioned before. That kind of discovery only happens from within the Osireion. But the interior is off limits to the public. Only a handful of tours, like my Adept expeditions, receive special permits. Even then, access is through a modern staircase, bolted to the southern ledge, dropping straight into the central hall. It's quick, it's convenient. It's how I first entered years ago with John Anthony West. It's how exclusive groups still access it today. But that entrance, it's not how the ancients intended it. It gives you a skewed perspective. It alters the entire psychological and symbolic experience. You miss the monument. You miss the symbolic journey it was designed to evoke. You don't fully grasp the Osireion the way the ancients meant for you to see it unless you step into it as the ancients once did. Because this wasn't a hole you drop into. It was a descent, a sacred transition. transition. That's why, for years, I've insisted on leading my tours through the original entrance, once reserved for the initiated priests, nobles, and the pharaoh himself. This western corridor through the Temenos Wall was intentionally designed to divide the world of chaos outside from the sacred space within. By retracing these ancient steps, we don't just explore the Osireion, we follow its intended path, a sacred procession into a hidden realm. So we begin here at the arched doorway, buried in sand. The biggest clues, they're not always carved in granite. Sometimes they're sealed in mud brick. When Frankfurt came to drain the flooded hall, he found the entrance itself sealed, a wall of mud brick stamped with Seti's cartouche. Seti didn't just build the Osireion, he sealed it. You might wonder, did Seti really build this or just carve his name like graffiti on something older? But keep watching, because what's found inside, quite literally embedded in the wall, tells a different story. Just before the passage, remnants of a vertical shaft, 3 meters wide, nearly 5 deep, originally backfilled with rubble. That's not temple architecture. The presence of a vertical shaft filled with rubble, that's a security feature associated with tombs. Past the arch, the corridor stretches 32 meters, plain mud brick, then suddenly sandstone. No threshold, no lintel, just mud to stone, as if creation begins right here. Frankfurt called it strange, but it's not a flaw, it's Zeptepe, the first time where form emerges from formlessness. Jon Assmann put it best, the gate is the most pregnant symbol of transition. In ancient texts, Ra's descent into the Duat begins with a journey of 120 Itru, a stretch between light and dark. This 32-meter corridor mirrors that distance. The mud brick, that's noon, the abyss before time. The sandstone, creation itself made solid, a transition from formlessness to form. And the first figure we meet, the pharaoh himself, kneeling before Atum, the creator, appropriate considering this marks the place of creation. To the right, the Book of Gates. To the left, the Book of Caverns. Not decoration, ritual blueprints for the soul's renewal. Over here, a relief on the wall shows a raised step podium, just like the one we'll soon stand on inside the central hall. A visual echo, ritual mirrored in stone. 11 figures ascend. Add that to the 354 in the Book of Gates, 365, a solar year marked in myth. And although we find cartouches of Merneptah here, just beyond the 10th hour of the Book of Caverns, we also find traces of paint and Seti's name. Graffiti from the 21st and 22nd dynasty adds more layers. Ancient priests call this place the hidden realm of the Duat of Men-Matra for Osiris. Tells us the Osireion is an archaeological reconstruction of the underworld itself. It's the Duat, and they identify the central hall as the birthhouse of Isis directly. Hail to you, Isis, in the birthhouse. At the end of the corridor, a small chamber opens before you. In ancient times, it would have been lit by flickering torchlight. Today, open to the sky. On the walls, you see Horus offering to his father, Osiris, seated on a throne, crook and flail in hand. A king among gods. And just beside the doorway, into the next chamber, the name Men-Matra, again, Seti I. But it's not inside a cartouche, which means Merneptah's artisans must have missed it. They were likely looking for ovals, not a name hiding in plain relief. But it proves Seti was here. Even in erasure, the pharaoh endures. This chamber might seem small, but it holds an important architectural clue. We've seen this shape before in 18th dynasty royal tombs. Thutmose III, Amenhotep II, Thutmose IV, because tombs of that era followed a bent axis. Corridors began straight, then pivoted suddenly, usually 90 degrees or more, to go deeper into the earth. But sarcophagi don't turn easily, especially not in narrow stone passages. These chambers served a purpose. Rotation, a turning point where priests could pivot the coffin and carry it forward. And here, the Osireion does the same thing. A sharp, right-angle pivot at the end of a corridor, a move straight out of the Valley of the Kings. But this space wasn't just practical, it was sacred, used not only once at burial, but on specific nights. Priests entered here. This chamber marked the final stop for 2 of the Osireion's 3 major ritual cycles. A nightly cycle, enacting the journey of the sun god through the Duat. A monthly cycle, beginning with the last visible crescent, the rites for the new moon. The third ritual, that took place in the central hall, which we'll see soon. It was all part of a larger restoration, a state-sanctioned revival known as the Wehim Misut, the New Era or Renaissance, a reconstruction of Zep Tepe the first time, and a return to Ma'at, cosmic order, after the blasphemy of Akhenaten. These weren't just rituals, it was a political and spiritual reboot, a return to Zep Tepe the first time. This wasn't just memory, it was maintenance of the cosmos itself. But beyond this corridor, the path continues. You crossed into darkness, into the underworld of Osiris. The floor slopes gently beneath your feet, a passage angled downward, pulling you deeper. Your candle flickers, hieroglyphs shimmer in shadow. It's hymns to Ra. The deeper you go, the more distant life becomes. You've entered the first hour of night, a sacred descent. At the bottom, a corridor opens, stretching from left to right. This is the Transverse Hall, the first of two transverse halls you'll encounter. In ancient times, it served as the Hall of Two Truths, decorated with reliefs of judgment, the weighing of the heart, and the king making offerings. Today, its function has changed. It now serves as a storage space, housing the blocks recovered from the central hall. Its roof forms a sacred triangle, echoing the Ben, the first land to rise from the abyss, a sign of rebirth, ascension, divine presence. You're close now, very close. And then the space opens wide. The central hall, massive granite columns, a ledge, a moat. This is the same space people mean when they say the Osireion just doesn't belong. Long associated with death, with Osiris, ruler of the underworld. This isn't just a chamber of endings. This is the birthhouse of Isis, a unique feature among all known Egyptian structures. Here, Osiris, though dead, gives rise to Horus, the living king, through the magic of Isis. This is where the divine kingship is conceived, not just symbolically, but ritually enacted. And that myth begins on a specific day, the 17th of Hathor, when Osiris was torn apart, dismembered. 17, 16 is balance, 18 is harmony, but 17 fractures the order. It disrupts, it transforms. Just like Osiris's death, a cosmic rupture that makes rebirth possible. All around the chamber, 17 small square rooms, cut with care but left unfinished. Maybe for statues, maybe for offerings, maybe for something now lost. But seen through the eyes of a symbolist, it all feels intentional. Not abandonment, but ritual, a symbolic pause where death gives way to becoming.
And then you can see the ceiling, and this stone is broken, and that ceiling would have continued. All along here, you can see where it's left unfinished.
But what really sets the Osireion apart is what happens right here, in this hall. Unlike tombs in the Valley of the Kings, where the deceased king receives offerings, here, the living king performs rituals for the gods, a place of action, of renewal, of power. Because this hall wasn't used once, it was used cyclically through 3 ritual cycles: the nightly rejuvenation of Ra, the monthly regeneration of the moon, and the conception of the divine kingship through the union of Isis and Osiris. That's why the central island matters. You walk the narrow ledge, just above sacred water, wide, deep, at least 7.8 meters. In ancient times, it would have been pitch black. Step wrong, and you vanish into Osiris's abyss. Today, you carefully cross a modern plank, part of recent conservation efforts, and you reach the podium. A platform built block by block. At the western end, a staircase, rough, unfinished. Functional, not beautiful. At the center, a shallow rectangular slot, cracked and worn, likely damaged by later Coptic activity. Not deep, but deliberate. An altar, coffin slot, its purpose remains unknown, but it anchors the room like a pulse, and I think I know why. Because if anything once rested here, it may have been a statue, a god, Osiris, reborn, enthroned at the center, just like what we see in the tomb of Jur, originally conceived of as an Osiris tomb, and just like we see in the temple of Seti above. Now, a small, square-like depression, not for a pillar, but likely for a statue, just like the ones we'll see in the decoration program ahead. Look closer, a small cavity cut in the sidewall. I place my 360 cam inside to see how far it goes. On the far side, a second staircase. This one's smooth, finish, refined. 2 staircases, west and east, rough and smooth. Symbolic contrast, balanced symmetry, just like the twin staircases we saw in the corridor. And above it all, a forest of granite pillars. Above that, granite architraves, then granite beams, interlocked. And beyond that, a grove. Frankfurt found 6 tree pits above the chamber, 3 on each side, imported conifers deliberately planted, a garden above, a tomb below. But it's not just a tomb. It's a cult center, an engine of cosmic maintenance. This is where the divine kingship was reborn, where the cosmos was kept in balance. As above, so below. Hieroglyphs adorn the far facade, the king offering to the gods, and now we step carefully over the plank into one of the 17 side chambers. This one different. At the far end of the eastern wall, a crack. Not a doorway, just an opening. Was it intentional, or a sealed space later breached? Either way, it leads somewhere unexpected. You step through. You find yourself in a second transverse hall. Not quite the same scale, but the same shape, and it seems to be running parallel to the first.
All right, we are now here at the Osireion and Abydos, and we are going inside. This is a site at Abydos you typically don't see. And if you notice, it's stylized, almost like a sarcophagus. It was, in a sense, a symbolic cenotaph or symbolic place to be interred. Up above, we have Nut swallowing the sun by night, giving birth to the sun by day.
Here, the ceiling becomes the sky. To the left, on the northern half, you see the Book of Nut. The sky goddess stretches above, her body filled with stars. Other scenes include the Book of Earth and the awakening of Osiris, marking the heavens, recording the hours. On the east wall, near the northeast corner, a low breach. I slid my camera inside, another hidden cavity, still unexplained. This is the only chamber in the Osireion decorated exclusively during Seti I's reign. He's shown boarding 2 solar boats, joining Ra on his journey through the Duat. Below him, he lies on a lion bed, surrounded by emblems of kingship. The inscription reads, "Given life, living with the imperishable stars." Because here, Seti doesn't just return, he rises, transfigured, eternal. And when you step back through that crack, back into the stone, you carry the sky with you. We exit the transverse hall, back into the central chamber. Light, water, granite, and it's here the controversy truly begins. The stone itself. People point to the granite and say, this must be Old Kingdom, but that's only part of the story. Look closer.
You know, everyone says doesn't look like anything in the ancient Egyptian civilization, with the exception of maybe the Coffer Valley Temple. But it's really a surface observation, and when we look at the details, it's actually on a sandstone floor. So right here we have one of the enormous granite monolithic columns, and you can see that it's on top of a sandstone platform. So the floor itself is sandstone. So you have granite on a sandstone floor. So this is all made of sandstone, and sandstone doesn't have a precedence in ancient Egyptian history until the Middle Kingdom. Sandstone does not come into vogue. In other words, they didn't use sandstone until the Middle Kingdom. So people talk about, well, it's granite, so it must be old. The bigger, the older. That's not always the case. And the granite is on the sandstone, which would suggest that it's at least a Middle Kingdom floor, if not older. This is actually paying homage as part of the Wimresut. It's paying homage to the old school, Seti's way of restoring Ma'at to after Akhenaten.
So here's the irony. People see granite and they assume Old Kingdom. They think bigger means older. But what this actually tells us is not that it's older, but that Seti I in the 19th dynasty was hauling and stacking sandstone even bigger than the megalithic granite, then placing those enormous megalithic granite pillars right on top. He wasn't only imitating the Old Kingdom, he was outdoing them. So let's give props where props are due and give Seti I his flowers for moving some of the most enormous granite stones in the entire ancient Egyptian civilization in the 19th dynasty.
Because look, you see these massive granite stones, they're laying on top of that wall. So if he can build all this, he can build everything else.
Yeah,
You know? I mean, you see the stones you see in Khafre's temple? They're easy compared to these.
Yeah. Ostraca from the site mentions shipments from various stone types. Some boats carried only a few blocks each, indicating massive size. These records link construction teams under Seti I to the Osireion, naming it beneficial as Menmatra for Osiris. So here we have it, an official 19th dynasty construction record. Big stones, big logistics, big build, granite pillars, architraves, and beams sitting on a sandstone island, which protects the limestone infrastructure. Every block integrated, interlocked. Frankfurt saw it clearly. This isn't a patchwork, it's a single phase construction.
So just over here in the distance is where we're gonna find one of our first clues. Let's go take a look.
And this is our first clue. A dovetail clamp locked deep inside the masonry, not added later, embedded beneath a granite architrave that still rests several courses above it, stamped with the cartouche of Seti. And this is not the only one. Dovetail clamps are found throughout the Osireion, and recently, local officials informed me that several more were discovered, all bearing Seti's name. So, unless Seti was secretly engraving his name inside the invisible parts of someone else's monument, he built this. And now, the grand finale. In 2023, during conservation work, archaeologists cleared centuries of sand from behind the Osireion, and buried beneath it a monumental ramp carved in the bedrock, sealed beneath layers of undisturbed settlement for millennia. Its width and slope perfectly built to accommodate the biggest blocks of the build. And the settlement above and below, nothing older than Seti. No old kingdom, no lost civilization. This wasn't inherited, it was engineered. So let's recap the evidence. Dovetail clamps in the masonry, stamped with Seti's name. Granite over sandstone, original, integrated, interlocked. Ostraca documenting Seti's workforce, stone shipments, and the Osireion's name. Pottery and debris, all 19th dynasty. Stamped mud bricks sealing the original passway. No Samawi Manu restoration texts, which Seti always left when restoring old structures. The ramp, newly discovered in the 19th dynasty context. New Kingdom iconography and layout. Later priestly graffiti affirming its sacred function and linked to Seti I. In the layout, the Osireion exhibits all the hallmarks of 18th and 19th dynasty royal tombs. Rectangular halls, square pillars, descending stairways, a central island, exactly what you'd expect from a funerary monument. And that arch on the northern facade, that's not Old Kingdom, that's 19th dynasty design language. Seti did it, Ramses did it, and here we see it again in the Osireion. Egyptologist Peter Brand puts it clearly, nowhere but in the Memphite region did the Old Kingdom pharaohs build their great granite temples and pyramids. Abydos? Not one of them. And there's more. Seti I was famous for restoration inscriptions. From Giza to Luxor, he always left his mark. But here, nothing. Because this wasn't restoration. It was his original creation. Piece by piece, the evidence stacks up. Not speculation, not guesses, archaeology. Neville may have seen a superficial similarity, but floor plans don't match, the symbolism doesn't align, and the stratigraphy says otherwise. And the stone, it speaks for itself. New Kingdom. For all of Egypt, a return to Ma'at, a return to cosmic order. So there's no real mystery here in what lies above ground. It's what lies beneath that we'll explore now. Seti I wasn't just a builder of stone, he was a builder of meaning, and water was central to that meaning. A true water wizard. He didn't just use it practically, he used it magically. And that makes what's coming next even more intriguing. Because for all we've uncovered, every clamp, every cartouche, every stone of evidence, there's still one thing we don't know. What's beneath? We know the Osireion holds water. We know there's a pit that drops at least 7.8 meters. But how far exactly? Still unknown. Researcher James Westerman suggests it might descend even further. And while his study isn't conclusive, it raises serious questions. Could there be another level, a deeper chamber, or perhaps an older foundation? Truth is, we don't know. And until proper exploration is done, that mystery stays sealed beneath the granite and groundwater. So if you're still holding on to the mystery of the megaliths, don't look up, look down. And if you've made it this far, thank you. And if you found value in this video, please do like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. And you can find support links, including Patreon, at anyextee.com. Want to go deeper? Type Deep Dive Osireion in the comments down below. And if enough of you do this, I'll upload a full-length, multi-hour presentation going much deeper, more depth into the symbolism, the rites, the rituals, the sacred water architecture, and how it all works in ways we couldn't fit here. Still want more? Join me for a tour. Visit adeptexpeditions.com and experience the Osireion for yourself. This isn't just content, it's an expedition, an adept expedition. Let's explore it together.